Happy to have you aboard here for the Really Big Barbecue Show.
Boing. We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet for wiener.
But listen, Libertius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
All right, just like that, we are into the second hour. Welcome aboard. It's the Barbecue Central Show. And we talk about Barbecue Central Show items, the live fire fun and frivolity show here on your Tuesday evening. Still to come on this show, Ed Reilly in just a few moments, and then Mendel Lynn from the MeatStick. You can follow me socially at BBQ Central Show on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and Snappy Snaps /BBQ Central Show on Facebook and Twitch for video feeds, also /RD Rempe on YouTube for your third and final video feed option. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less this Friday, you will find episode 160 taking you back to January 5th, 2016. And the pitmaster of then Clark Crew Barbecue, Travis Clark, was my guest. And we learned about Travis and how he got into the competition barbecue scene back in the day. You know, when you look back at how long he's done it, from a time standpoint, not that long in the biz to achieve the success that he has a couple years ago when he won Team of the Year. I think we would all agree, for those that follow the circuit over the course of the last 10, 15 years, there wasn't any other team who had experienced the type of success that he had, who was winning the type of competitions that he was winning and maximizing and blowing out the points the way that he was doing it. There was nobody better on the competition scene a good 2 or 3 years running. And 2 of those 3 years, he won Team of the Year. So we learned about how he got into the competition scene. The biggest revelation of that whole conversation was the year that he was winning the Team of the Year. He was also talking about his self-inflicted pains of his own inconsistencies. And when you talk about competition barbecuers, the refrain that you hear back from them, beginning and middle and professional grizzled vet, is you have to be consistent. You have to run the same program. And through that previous year, he was buying Snake River Farms briskets for one competition, and he was buying like Sam's Club briskets for the next competition. He was buying something completely different for that. There was no consistency in the brisket. And while he was top 10 or higher in ribs and chicken and pork, he was 115th, or he was 100 plus for results in the brisket category. And as he started to look back on it, said, well, I was my own worst enemy there. I was inconsistent in that category, and this is why. And he fixed it and eventually won out and won Team of the Year, and he has those titles to prove it. Full link in the show notes when you get to it on Friday. And let me remind you that if you have a favorite segment or guest that you would like to hear a best of from, email John, Jon, at thebbqcentralshow.com, and he will take care of you. Or do his best attempt. I'll get to Bubba's from Georgia's email next week. Well, looky here, serendipitous. I'll talk to you quickly about B&B Charcoal before we bring on the guy from B&B Charcoal. Not all charcoal is created equal. First and foremost, charcoal is a heat source. You want to look for the most efficient way to cook outdoors. Second is the taste and appearance benefit the charcoal can give your food. Third is the health and safety considerations for you and your equipment. The 2 main types of charcoal are obviously lump and briquette. The key differences between lump and briquette is the charcoal briquette is that lump is 100% natural wood. Briquettes are made of wood byproducts and additives. Quality comes from the quality ingredients. Fuel is the last ingredient, but it is the first taste that you perceive when eating. Choosing the right fuel source makes all the difference. It's very important to use best quality charcoal when you cook because it is both a heat source and a flavor source. And as you know, you have the options, the charcoal lump and the charcoal briquette. I would say if you're going to do overnight or you want consistent long burn times, briquette is your item. If you want something with a little higher heat, lump charcoal. Less ash production. Maybe you're not worried about cooking for hours and hours on end. I would say lump is the way to go. Bottom line is this, both fuels have the advantage and the disadvantage. Both can be used to make great food. The call is up to you. There is no right or wrong answer. Fuel source truly depends on you as the cook. Always be sure to buy the highest quality products from a brand you can trust like B&B Charcoal. And you can check out where to buy them when you visit bbcharcoal.com. I would suggest your local Ace to start with, bbcharcoal.com, and Ed Reilly is ready to go as well. Stick around. We'll be right back for some pellet talk.
Monthly visits from a killer hog, a cooking guy, a man named Meathead, the author of Barbecue Bible, a grill girl, a bristly barbecue journalist, and the malfeasance of the barbecue world known as the embedded correspondents. Only found right here on the Barbecue Central Show.
All right, welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker. Most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet. Currently available in 2 sizes with a host of accessories, whether you're a beginner or professional. Definitely a cooker you want to add to the arsenal. Visit pitbarrelcooker.com and tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you. My first guest in the second hour is the Director of Sales and Marketing over at B&B Charcoal, leading manufacturer of charcoal products on the market today and one of the newest sponsors of this show. He was on near the end of 2020 to rave reviews. We got the history of the company. We talked about briquettes. We talked about lump. Tonight, we will touch on their other product called wood pellets. Are you familiar with that? Of course you are. We race back to the hotline and welcome back Ed Reilly to the show. Hey, Ed.
Hey, Greg, how are you, sir?
I am absolutely fabulous. Appreciate you joining me here this evening so we can talk a little bit more B&B product. And then towards the end, we'll talk about, I guess, what I would term a raging addiction. Some might call it a large curation. We'll call it whatever you want to call it, and we'll get into that here in just a few minutes. But let's go ahead and talk about some other fuel sources that B&B has to offer. Last time you were on, as I had mentioned in the open, we talked about briquettes, and we talked about lump. Lump being that main flagship product, and then briquettes grew out of that. Charlogs grew out of that. One of the cookers that have become incredibly popular, I mean, they've been around since the mid-'80s, so if you're a nerd like me, you've certainly been aware of them for quite a period of time. But to the general ham and egger out there that continues to grow their cooking arsenal, pellet cookers have really come into vogue. They've become very popular for any number of reasons, and obviously you need wood pellets to fire those. And B&B has pellet options. So let's go ahead and talk about where the pellets are for B&B and what yours look like compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Pellets are definitely a legitimate source of outdoor cooking. I enjoy my pellet grill. I've got an old Traeger and a newer Recteq. So they come in a lot of varieties. B&B's been making pellets, I think, for about nearly 9 years, almost 10 years. The difference, just like with everything B&B does, is we make ours a little bit different. So we make a wood chip and chunk that's part of the barbecue fuels that we have. And then after we get done processing the chips and chunks, we clean those remnants out, the smaller scraps, those pieces of wood, and that's what we use to make our pellets from. So our apple pellets are made with our apple wood. We do mix the fruit woods a little bit because the fruit woods need a little more BTU, so we mix everything that's a fruit wood with our oak. And then our oak and hickory and mesquite are standalone, but then our apple, cherry, maple, missing one. I'll cook them to me. Should put that list in front of me. But the fruit woods are mixed with the 70-30 mix with our oak and our fruit woods. The difference in that is a lot of other pellet manufacturers, they source their wood from industrial scrap wood. So it might be leftover pieces of furniture, pieces of bed frames, and that type of stuff, and then they compress that and they add flavor oils. We don't do that. Our wood is from our own source, and our source is hand-selected. When our apple wood comes in, we have a guy who inspects the wood that comes in before it's kiln dried, and they accept wood or they don't accept wood, which gives us a higher quality control on the wood that we start off with. And then within one season, that wood is compressed into our pellets. We don't have to use a whole lot of binder agents. A lot of people use corn or rice binders. We use very little binder because there's still sap left in that wood. So when that pellet is compressed, some of the natural saps form the casing on that. We do use some cornstarch binder in it, but not much. And that makes a difference because if you have a lot of binding agent in it, you leave your pellets out at night, they're going to absorb moisture. Mine's going to absorb less moisture because there's less binder in it. There's more natural resins in there. When there's resins, those saps are more water resistant. So your pellets won't expand. I know if I've left my pellet outside for too long, and then when I go into the hopper, all those pellets have expanded and turned to dust, basically. That's before I started using B&B. The B&B pellets are going to last longer in an outside environment, and that's going to save your hopper and your auger systems. So at the end of the day, you get a better wood with ours, so it's going to burn hotter because the BTU is going to be higher. You're going to have better flavor because we don't add flavor oils, and there's less ash and less waste.
Is there a term in the business called is it lignin or linen that's like naturally occurring?
So those your naturally occurring the wood fibers have a membrane, a cellulose membrane. You'll have more of that in mine because mine's a fresher wood, or we use fresher ingredients. If you have a piece of wood, and it could be hardwood, but if you have a piece of hardwood that's 2 or 3 years old, maybe it's a piece of furniture that's scrapped out, that I'm probably saying it wrong, but that you said it correctly. Those cellulose membranes have dried out, so there's less of that in older wood. Our wood is less than a year old by the time it probably hits the pellets, so you have more of that in ours, and that's going to give you the distinctive smoke flavors. Your apple wood comes from the cellulose membranes in the apple. We're going to have more of that in mine. Your hickory, your maple, your cherry, all that's going to come from those lignins. I wish I could speak science, but that's the word. But yeah, there's 3 different membranes that are in plants basically, and the fresher the wood, the more of those flavors you have.
Is B&B have their own manufacturing plant? Like these are pellets that you are making specifically, or are you outsourcing to some other manufacturer?
We're outsourcing. We didn't put our own pellet plant in, so what we're using another pellet plant facilities, but it's we ship our truckloads of our dust, basically, with the splinters and the small fibers to the plant, and they produce it. It's almost like back in the day, Samuel Adams was being made at Budweiser plants, right? So after they get done with the Budweiser, Samuel Adams brings their own proprietary recipe blend in, and it's made at those things. I don't know if they still do that or not, but that was back in the day how they did it, and that's what we do. So instead of buying our own pellet manufacturing, we are using another person's, but it's our blend, if that makes any sense. It's all raw ingredients that goes into our pellets.
Has there been talk ever? I mean, I would assume that the continued popularity of pellet cookers is going to grow through this year, and I would imagine it would continue to grow through the next 5-10 years. Is it something that B&B would look into putting in like a pellet, their own pellet thing?
This past year has been crazy busy for all people in the barbecue world. There's been a lot of capital investments that we have done to put back into our business. I see all aspects of barbecue continuing to grow. I think people are staying home more, so I think people have more time to spend, outdoor cooking, and that's going to include pellet. I don't think we're putting our own pellet plant in, just because financially I think we're focusing on our charcoal and our lump. That's our main thing. And I think there's a lot of environmental concerns too. To put a new plant in, there's a lot of government regulations involved with that because there is pollution, I guess, and the carbon footprints and stuff. So I think at this time, We're not putting an own plant in. I know other people have, but I think we are just, it's more financially, and I don't work that high up in the office to know this stuff for sure, but I don't think we are looking at putting our own pellet plant in. So we'll continue to have somebody else make our pellets for us using our raw material.
So we're in 2021 now. I would assume there was some type of a year-end meeting for you guys, and then you are obviously, all sales guys have to put together that dreaded forecast to look out into 2021. So, what, just roughly, what percentage of sales were wood pellets for you compared to lump in briquettes? Was it even 5% or 10% versus the traditional stuff?
So we're not that big of a company. We don't have. I know just what I've sold, so I can kind of just spitball it. But we're kind of. I mean, it's like I call to the CEO, and I hadn't. We don't have those high level discussions. He just tells me,
sell more.
What's your marketing budget? Here's your sales goals? Yeah, it's like if there's a dozen employees at B&B, that might be an overstretch. So we're not that big. So we should have those meetings, but we hadn't. But I do know our pellet versus our charcoal. Our charcoal is probably 80%, and that's all forms of charcoal. And then, I think the woods are probably, I guess that maybe it's 30% from what I can see. So maybe it's 75-25. Let's say our woods and the pellets fall under the wood category. So we have log splits, we have chunks, chips, and then our pellets are probably part of that 25%. If you want to look overall sales.
From an accessibility standpoint on the pellets, are they fairly easy to find, or is it a similar process where maybe you would want to go into an Ace if you don't see them, then start striking up that conversation with the store manager and saying, hey, look at the warehouse near you and start bringing them in for me?
Ace has got 2 of our pellets. They're tied in with Traeger right now pretty tight. So Ace carries our championship blend, which is our post oak, cherry, and pecan combination, and they carry our Jack Daniels. Our Jack Daniels is made from the charcoal, basically, that from the Jack Daniels plant in Lynchburg, where we actually take the charcoal. And that's an important thing to remember when people cook with, I think we talked about this last time or touched on it, when you cook with pellets, you're getting a raw smoke flavor. A lot of people miss that charcoal flavor, the traditional smoky, when the fat hits the wood and you get that smell coming back out. You don't get that so much with the pellets.
Yep.
And so we've partnered with Jack Daniels, and we actually use their charcoal from the char, the char that they use from inside their barrels. We use that in our charcoal pellets. So I recommend using a cup of that for every pound of regular smoke pellets that you have. So the 2 that you get at Ace are our Jack Daniels charcoal pellets and our championship blend. The other pellets are right now available. Pretty much Academy. Academy carries all our pellets. We get 7 flavors of pellets. You could buy them there, and I guess a few places sell them online. One of the most popular ones that people like is our post oak. We actually have a post oak pellet, and the reason why that's so popular is because a lot of pellets smokers, they do longer cooks, like your briskets. And in the brisket world, that post oak flavor is really a Texas style, and that's what people are looking for, is that post oak smell. And I think we're the only one that make a post oak pellet. And there's a few places online that sell it. It's just the shipping that 20 pounds of pellets shipped is going to cost as much as the bag of pellets. But I think our pellets sell for $11, and I think the shipping, you could probably get some shipping for about $11, $12 or something like that. If you go online, look on our bbcharcoal.com, you'll see a few stores in Texas. They're the ones who be carrying it, and you can contact them directly and work out something if they want it.
From a charcoal standpoint, before we broach into the next subject, Ed, where are we at as we get into the new year from a inventory level? Last time we talked, it was really kind of chasing around to make sure that everybody was getting what they were looking for. Supply and demand was at a premium. Still the same kind of thing 6-7 weeks later?
I just talked to them today. The char logs are the only things that maybe have a 30-day. And so if somebody's interested in putting an order in, give me a call. But we're up to speed with our briquettes. I'd say about 2 or 3 weeks for the briquettes, but that's kind of normal. But we've got lump, all our flavors of lump. We've got our hickory lump, our mesquite lump, and our oak lump, and then the briquettes. So get your orders in for the briquettes. We're happy to help folks with that. And those are for the independent stores, even Ace stores. Ace, people can call us up directly or contact us directly, and we can get those out. But the char logs, and the reason why is because the way our process works, we start with the oak lump. The smaller pieces of that oak lump that don't make into the bag, that's what we make our briquettes with. And then the smaller pieces of that we make our char logs with. So our char logs are a third step process, and those are probably 30 days out. But our lump and our briquettes, we're catching up.
All right, so that sounds good. So if you're interested, then go ahead and visit Ace or check out the website and see where you can get it at. So let's go ahead and switch gears here for a second, Ed. And, a lot of us suffer from this disease called MCS, or multiple cooker syndrome. If you look back out in my patio, I have a Weber gas grill, I have 2 Green Mountain pellet cookers, I have a Traeger, I have a Lang offset. I might have had a pair of Weber Smoky Mountains as well, but they might have been gifted, and the list kind of went on and on. A lot more people have a lot more grills and cookers in their backyard than that. You seem to have taken it to a completely different level. So I don't know if you have a rough count, or because you knew that this was going to be a portion of the interview, if you went, took a couple weeks to count and get a true definitive head count. What's your current cooker count?
So first, a disclaimer: the multiple cooking syndrome is not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Totally.
I mean, most people, if you walk into your kitchen, you have multiple ways of cooking. You got a toaster, a microwave, an oven, a stove. You got a variety of things to cook on. I think your deck needs that too. I think your deck needs ceramic. It needs a pellet. It needs a gas. There's nothing wrong with having a charcoal or two for different things. So, not a bad thing, I think. And your outdoor kitchen should kind of reflect your indoor kitchen. I mean, if you go to contests, you'll see these people having multiple different appliances to cook different things. They cook the chicken on this, the brisket on that, and that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to dodge your question, but the
I said no preface needed in this neighborhood. You're good to go.
I started collecting vintage grills. That's the key, vintage. These are older grills. And I think it was 2015 that I entered the Guinness Book of World Records at 750 grills. That was a few years ago. I've added a few since then. But so I'd keep my wife out of this a little bit. But I probably about 850 grills now.
Wow,
so,
look at you! Holy moly!
So that was, and most of these are, like I said, they're vintage. They're, some of them I do use, but right now, the primary thing, my wife actually cooks more than I do, so she cooks on a gas grill, but I do like the charcoal grills better. And I'm looking forward to, right now they're all in storage. I've got them in a variety of different places. Some of them were in a museum in Atlanta for a while, and they're being packed up, and hopefully they're going to Alabama for another museum exhibit there. But it's only about 40 or 50 of them in that exhibit. But there was a point in time that you could buy these things for nothing, like 10, 15, 20 bucks a piece. I just bought one the other day at a St. Croix. It's probably 150 years old, and it's an old, kind of a cast iron looking, they call it a coal pot, but it's a grill basically. And it was off an old sugar plantation that was built in the 1750s. This one doesn't go that old, but it's a cast iron one that's pitted and used. And you can imagine how many special events, how many steaks, how many bellies were filled with food that's cooked off this grill. So those are ones that, and it was off an auction, there was like $50 or something. And, but it's just, what were they going to do with it if they didn't sell it? They'd probably scrap it or something. Sure. So something like that just has some historic value to it. And those are the type of things I collect mainly. It's just older ones, things that have some history to them, and definitely unique ones. I've got some old, like I worked for Weber for about 20 years, so that's really what started it. Right. And I've got some old, like 1950, I say it's a flat top Weber top. I've got two of those. So those are before Weber domed the top, and they probably started doming the top in 53. So these are 52s, maybe 51, 52s, somewhere in there. So that's the type of stuff I collect.
Do you have a ballpark value on the collection in total? I mean, certainly I'm sure some of this stuff is way more valuable to you personally because of the story behind it or how you acquired it, things like this. But do you have a general retail number on that?
Yes. For insurance, I did insure a collection. When you have a collection, you got to kind of estimate. And I estimated it about $100,000 worth. I didn't spend that on it, but that's just some of the things have gone up in value. Like, some of the early Weber grills I bought for $20 or $30 are selling now for $3,000 or $4,000. So they've got some value added to them. But as any historical item, it's how do you gauge it if there's only two of them out there? Some of the grills I have are the only ones of them out there. So you can only kind of say, well, I was just, before I talked to you, I was looking online. Some movie house rents these things out. And there's, 5 or 6 of the grills they rent out, I own, and they rent them out for, $1,000 a week or something like that. So I can kind of estimate what my value is worth based on something like that. But somewhere around that. But that's of course, that's just, and with any antique, it's just whatever the market bears on that one. There's no real market value for some of the stuff at the time, but so that's what I put the insurance policy at.
Well, it used to be Ted Reeder, the king of all grills here on this show, but easily usurped by the one and only Ed Reilly of B&B Charcoal. Ed, appreciate you coming on tonight and hipping us to the pellet part of the business and giving us an inventory status of the briquettes and the lump, and then talking to us about the grill collection that you're currently curating. Always appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing it.
Well, thanks for having me on again, Greg. We appreciate it, and just let us know next time you ever want to talk about anything barbecue. I love talking to you guys about it.
I will do it. There he is, Ed Reilly, right there, owning all the grills in the world. In case you missed it, 850 at rough count. Wowee, that's a lot. Ted Reeder, I think at one point said he had 100. Maybe a little more than 100 and so many. Not 850. That's for sure. I wonder if my connection is not working well. Oh, there he is. Mendel is in the green room, ready to come on here. I'm going to talk to you quickly about Green Mountain Grills, some of the best pellet cookers out there on the market today, and then we'll talk the MeatStick. Green Mountain Grills has 2 lines to choose from, as I tell you each and every week, a choice line and then a prime line. If you want the tech, if you want the internal meat probes, you want the peek-in windows on the main cooking chamber and the pellet hopper, you want Wi-Fi capability, you want to be able to adjust temperature and look at everything on your mobile app, you need the Prime line or Prime Plus. Prime Plus gets you the lights inside as well and the fold-down front table. Prime line, a fixed front table, but you have the connectivities I had mentioned. If you want to save a couple bucks, fine. Get the choice line, perfectly fine. It's the same size as the Prime lines, just a little bit different tech. Well, no tech for the choice. But it's a great cooking vessel. Either the Jim Bowie or the Daniel Boone will also house the pizza oven insert, regardless of line. That's something you're going to want to get. And then for mobile opportunity, Davy Crockett plugs right into your 12-volt outlet in the car. It's got battery clamps if you want to bring a car battery along with you, or just plug it in wherever you can get AC at. You're not sacrificing a tremendous amount of capacity for portability either with the Davy Crockett, so check it out. Only sold through dealers. So go to greenmountaingrills.com, find the nearest dealer near you, and then go see it in person. Learn from the dealer. Let them educate you, and you have success right when you get home. The MeatStick. We'll learn all about it in just a few minutes. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the #1 most downloaded barbecue and grilling podcast anywhere. The Barbecue Central Show. Celebrating over 10 years of prolific and unparalleled live fire barbecue and grilling talk. And yes, it's still being done from Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
And this portion being brought to you by Smithfield. Smokin', S-M-O-K-I-N, SmokinWithSmithfield.com is a place to go. Find out about their Committed Cooks program. Still trying to lock down Laura Paul for the reveal of the Smithfield Grant program for competitions this year and the ones that were going to get it last year. But, of course, that didn't work out too well because of coronavirus. You can also visit Smithfield.com as well. Smithfield with us for 2021. Or to help me close the show tonight is a company that is looking to change the thermometer world with their wireless offering. For years, thermometers have wires, and that has been the norm. But over the past few years, we've been seeing more and more wireless options coming to market. So let's go ahead and learn about something called the MeatStick with the one and only Mendel Lin. And we race to the hotline. Hey, Mendel.
Hi, Greg. How are you today?
I am fabulous. Appreciate you joining me this evening, or where you are probably towards noon or something like that, as you are joining us from the
Yes.
great city of Taiwan, ladies and gentlemen, if you can believe it. And I'm not kidding, by the way. That's for real. We'll get into that here in a second. Before we get into talking about the MeatStick, Mendel, a little background on you professionally and, where you lived originally and how you made your way over to where you're at right now.
So I was actually a lawyer many years ago, and I got dragged into the IoT space, developing smart home and technologies involved with that. I'm actually from California, and I actually still live in LA. I'm just over here, as some people like to call it, as a quarantine refugee, staying away from what's happening, in the States right now.
So were you there because maybe you vacation, or you just had like a rental property over there, or like, when I'm thinking about getting away, Taiwan isn't like the first thing that comes to. I mean, nowhere comes to mind except maybe Australia, because I've heard they've been doing it right. But why Taiwan?
So our production is all in Taiwan. So I was actually doing a trip a couple months ago to come back and check on it for pretty much before the holiday seasons. I was supposed to be back in the States with the family for Christmas, but things got very bad, obviously, in LA during that time. So decided, at least for now, to prolong it here in Taiwan a bit longer to see how things clear up.
So outside of trying to sell a wireless thermometer product into the live fire market, are you somebody that just generally likes barbecue and grilling food? And if so, what's your favorite stuff to get after?
So for me, I actually, I love ribs. And the way we actually got into even thinking about this technology was I normally host an annual pool party for my friends, some family and whatnot. And I'm always cooking, and something I realized about cooking is when you're cooking for, 20, 30, 40 guests, you're constantly occupied preparing the food. So for me, over time, I realized I'm always doing this. A day goes, or an event goes by, and you're like, all right, who did I talk to? What happened? I served them great food. Everyone had a great time. That was my goal. But at the same time, I'm always trying to figure out ways to, make things easier for all of us. So this is why I was in the smart home, tech originally. We developed some technology with regards to trying to automating lights and things like that. Right before, all these other players were in the space. One of the big things was just being in bed and making sure all the lights in your house are turned off. Something so simple as that.
Mendel Lin joining us here on the show. The website, by the way, is themeatstick.com, and you can check it out while we're talking if you're not familiar with it. So it does appear that wireless thermometers are the future of, remote temperature monitoring, if you will. The first one that jumps to mind, and it has been for years, is this meter. And that seems to have like the most, I don't know if brand recognition or just general recognition as far as wireless ones are concerned. But now you have MeatStick and a few other ones that are coming to market here recently. Were you inspired by the meter or some other competing product, and you said, hey, conceptually nice, but I can execute much better?
So actually, our prototyping was when we were just playing with the idea. That's when we found out about Meter originally, and they had their Kickstarter. Definitely, I'll admit, there probably was developing the technology before we were. But they helped validate our idea because we were working on some other technology at the time as well. So as we were already prototyping it, we decided to put more effort into it to really develop it out.
How quickly are you able to go from whatever that initial prototype looked at to a finished product you could bring to market?
Well, we were trying to get our product actually to the market before Meter, simply put, and we almost were able to do that. Honestly, this technology is a lot more complicated than it seems. It's one thing to create a prototype, and it's another thing to mass manufacture it. So I understand the issues and why they potentially took many years to get the product to market.
I just figured they wanted to raise multi-million dollars and then get the hell out of town. It seemed like a scam to me.
Yeah, that's what everyone seemed. I mean, looking at their timeline and their prototypes that I don't know if did they really even show how it worked back then? I'm not even sure. But
I think it was very rudimentary.
No one knew what was happening. Yeah. But what I can say is we got our Wi-Fi version onto the market before they did. Their blocks released a year and a half later from when we released our Wi-Fi bridge. We definitely approached the situation completely differently than they did.
All right, so for the folks that aren't familiar with it or can't wrap their head around what we're talking about mentally, can you paint a picture for us as far as what it looks like and how it actually operates?
Oh, for sure. So let me see. I have one right here. It's pretty much the wireless meat thermometer on a charging block. And the idea of it is you take it out and you stick it into a piece of meat. So over here, I actually have my nice, trusty little fake piece of meat.
Yes.
And then you just stick it right on it. Right. And while it's inside, it's monitoring the internal temperatures of your meat. And there's a handle outside which can measure the ambient sensor in whatever, oven, grill that it's in.
So pretty straightforward stuff. When you're putting it in, do you have to make sure that the, let's say the stainless part is all the way in the meat to make sure that you're getting an accurate internal and that it's not somehow conflicting with the external portion of it?
So most definitely. So there's actually two reasons why we require the customer to actually stick it in completely into the meat. The first one is, just high heat degrades, electrical components. Simply put, the less wear it has to, your 400 degree oven, your 400 degree grill, 500 degrees, the better the electronics will survive in the long run. So that's the first one. The second one is really also the temperature accuracy. When it's exposed, for example, if it's exposed outside of it, because these thermometers aren't as thin as the typical wired ones or instant reads, there's a lot more heat that's able to go into it and transfer inside, which will give it a less accurate reading.
So let's talk about the gauge of that thing. The thing that the biggest complaint that I hear, aside from not being able to get more than 6 inches away without it starting to fuck up royally, is I'm not real keen on the size of hole that it leaves in the meat. Some people don't really care about it, but other people seem to bring it up. I would assume that it's a bigger gauge because there's obviously more technology that's packed into that than you would have a wired probe.
That's completely correct. For a typical wired probe, it's pretty much two wires going down the probe with a sensor at the very bottom of the probe. However, because all the electronics are based within the probe itself, or a MeatStick, there literally is electronic components and pieces inside, and there's of course the battery, rechargeable battery inside as well that needs to be protected. All of that can only get so thin.
Do you
obviously we're trying to make it thinner, but it's, it is hard to do, to stuff all that technology inside.
Is there a smaller version of that? If you were, I'm just throwing something out because it seems to make sense, but if you're going to do like a Cornish game hen, maybe that thing would pierce all the way through the breast, and so you don't need something that large. You just shit out of luck, or do you have other options?
So we were actually releasing our new mini soon. It is a lot smaller. Comparing in size, what we were able to do is bring put in a smaller battery. The big issue is it doesn't last as long, but it's also thinner. It's 5.5 millimeters versus 6 millimeters, I think it was, of the MeatStick. We call this the mini. And so with this, we like to say it's for, the typical cook. You're cooking anything, any small cuts of meat. The larger one, the MeatStick, is really for what I like to call, traditional American barbecue, large cuts of meat, brisket, even your ribs, really cooking anything that you would need to cook for an extremely long time.
All right, so let's talk about options or models, if there's anything other than just the MeatStick and the mini, and then, of course, price points.
Of course. So we released the original MeatStick back in, it was like 3 years ago, I guess. And we got a lot of feedback really quickly saying what was the problem with it. The biggest problem was the range. Yeah. So we actually had two versions during that time. It was our original MeatStick and our Wi-Fi bridge set. What we knew is people did want that Wi-Fi access to the MeatStick in order to, really watch their temperatures from anywhere, especially when you're cooking a brisket for, 16 hours up to 24 hours, depending on, those extreme barbecuers. So that's what we were aiming for. One thing we realized really quickly is people wanted more range. We, after our initial release, we really looked at what can we do to extend that range. With the way our technology works, we're quickly able to create pretty much a Bluetooth repeater, and we were able to get that on market relatively quickly as well. So that became our best-selling product. It encompasses majority of people with range concerns. And it was at a cheaper price point.
How many can you run at one time?
So what we actually recommend is you could run up to 8 at a time. What's different about our technology, our Bluetooth technology versus our competitors, is really we don't use traditional Bluetooth pairing. What we use instead is something called a Bluetooth beacon. And the main difference of that is in traditional Bluetooth pairing, you're connecting, and as you know, with wireless earbuds, you're connecting to one phone and they talk to each other. There are pros and cons of both, but the problem with that is it limits the range, it uses more batteries, and you're limited by the number you can connect to. So instead, what we've done is we've created this beacon format where it's really just letting any device that has the capability to read that signal just to be aware of what that temperature is. So by doing it that way, you could have 8 sticks and you could read all of them from your phone, or if you have our Wi-Fi bridge unit, it would be able to listen to that. And what's really cool about this technology is, our competitors also are able to have this Bluetooth repeater, right? For ours, all you need is one repeating device to repeat up to 8 sticks.
And the repeater is different than the Wi-Fi bridge?
Yes. So right now, we've actually included the repeater within the charger itself. So we have the MeatStick and what we call the MeatStick X. And the X is for extended range.
Okay.
So just with this one charger, this charger unit, right now you see it's flashing green. It's letting you know it's the range extending is active, and it will extend the range of any probes nearby up to 260 feet away.
Is that clear line of sight, or regardless of wall or what have you?
That is clear line of sight.
Okay. So what about
as I like to say, go for it.
No, go ahead.
So what I like to say with the 260 feet is it really, I mean, if you're in your backyard, usually it's able to get into at least through one wall, right? If you're in your living room, you're pretty much good. Obviously, if you want to go into the bathroom or farther back, it might be able to reach that far, but it's definitely hard to guarantee depending on the home. However, if you're cooking within the home itself in your kitchen with the oven, it usually gives a good enough range for the entire home, unless you have a giant mansion, of course.
I do not, so we don't have to worry about that. So my overriding thought is Bluetooth really just kind of sucks most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Your distance or range is going to be Wi-Fi. The thing that I have, as I had mentioned before when we were testing, is the Fireboard, which is not a wireless option. It is completely wired. But out of the box, mega simple to set up. Hooks right up to my local area network or router, whatever you want to call it. The app is very simple to get up and running. And I can go to the grocery store or Tennessee and immediately look and see what's on my grill and how it's tracking and all that stuff. Is there some kind of disconnect with the wireless side of this, and where it doesn't seem to just be meshing up as well, or is your Wi-Fi capability just as easy as the Fireboard, for instance?
I would like to say it's just as easy to a certain extent. Obviously, when you're dealing with wireless technology, there is always that potential issue with connections, but generally it works pretty seamlessly. One thing the wired option that does have over wireless is really the refresh rate. And what that means is just how quickly the temperature can be updated. Once it's wired in, it's measuring the temperature or pulling the sensor every 0.1 seconds or whatnot. So it's able to pull that temperature really quickly and get that over to you very quickly. With the wireless version, ours also pull very quickly, but the problem is the transmission, the receiving time, that every step adds a few milliseconds. So you're getting that temperature maybe 1 or 2 seconds later.
Is that something that you can Is that something that you can improve upon, or just the nature of that business? It's always going to be a little bit. It will have a little bit more latency on it.
It really is just the nature of the business. One thing I could say is with the traditional pairing, it does run a little bit quicker. The latency is a bit better with regards to that. However, from what we've been seeing with majority of cooks, unless you're trying to get exactly precise measurements, it's really not necessary. Right. Even if you're searing something, that 1-2 seconds does not make much of a difference. And as you grow to use it, you also get accustomed to the data that it's feeding you.
Did you? What were the price points on those again?
So our original MeatStick is $70. The MeatStick X is $100 or $69.99, $99.99. And then we have our Wi-Fi bridge set, which includes our Wi-Fi bridge unit, a carrying case, one MeatStick set, and an extra probe. And that's for $199.99.
What's the cost of a replacement probe? Let's say I got careless with it, or I don't know why things just stop working for whatever reason, but it's a pretty cost or non-cost factor for a wired one. It's $15 and away you go. I would imagine are you just buying another probe at $60 or $70 to replace it then?
So we actually sell individual probes at $55. What I didn't mention earlier is we actually have 4 different colored probes. So the colored probes tell you 2 things really. One, it tells you an easy identifier physically when you're seeing it. Is it red, yellow, green, or black? But also in the app, it's identified as that as well. What we do is we print it on the ceramic, so it's the color is always there. As opposed to using, I know some people, they use a silicone ring that might burn if you're trying to sear with it, or just, it's exposed to heat, turns black, which has more issues with that.
Is there a warranty on the items?
So we have a 1-year warranty that encompasses all our products. I will admit, there's always a chance of our quality control is good, but it's still not at the place where it's 100% perfect. One thing I could say is because the electronics being fit inside small stainless steel probes is very difficult to do. So even though our initial testing is fine, there are always chances of something happening and causing issues. So we do have a 1-year warranty with regards to that, because most of the issues are potentially in that first step. One limitation of that is obviously if you're exceeding the maximum temperatures or you're inserting the sticks wrong, that would void warranty. And unfortunately, we do get that here and then. People are literally, I would say they're literally sticking the stick in like this and cooking with it. We have a lot of instructions. Sadly, there is that learning curve as well, because people are used to an instant read. We try to warn them to try to get them to understand how to use it properly. The sensor isn't at the tip; it's in the center. They think it's at the tip, and so they would insert it with just the tip in, and they pretty much fry all the electronics, and they're wondering why it doesn't work anymore.
Right.
We would love to replace it, but at the same time, we're still trying. I'll admit, we're as a small company, we're still trying to figure out, customer service and what's being lenient and what's being not. From what I've seen, usually if they're nice about it, we usually replace it for free for the first time. But there are a lot of people that get really angry saying it's not very clear. And just FYI, in our app, we literally have a section where we need them to say, caution, do not do this. Click here to say that you've read this. And we try to make it very clear, but, people still don't read.
Yes, totally.
Or even, yeah. So we're trying to figure that out a little bit.
The old customer service line, we'll replace as a one-time courtesy is a phrase that you guys should put in the old CSR manuals, no doubt. I had asked Ben West this, the guy that created Spark Grill. I don't know if you're familiar with those or not, but I'll ask you the same question. Considering, there are companies that start out with a intended end game. For you guys at the MeatStick, is this a brand that you're starting and looking to evolve 5 and 10 and 15 years from now? So the wireless temperature monitoring game is synonymous with MeatStick? Or are you looking to ramp it up and prove this concept and then hope that maybe Weber or Charbroil might come to you and say, hey, Mendel, we have a big fat checkbook here, and what's your walk-off number? We would like to take it over at this point.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely hard to say, right? If someone's coming with me with,
not
$1
for
billion,
me. I want the money. I always want the money.
But honestly, creating this technology and the different companies coming to us right now with just being really excited for this technology and the applications of it, not just for the barbecue world, even just different facets of the restaurants, even some temperature measurement companies are coming to us, food storage. There's so much opportunity here right now, besides just barbecue and just cooking out. That really just see what happens.
A lot of upside, and
right.
We're talking with Mendel Lin. You can check them out over at themeatstick.com. And I appreciate you coming on here for you this afternoon and giving us a little history on yourself and the MeatStick and what it has to bring to the market. We wish you continued success, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Greg.
You got it.
Really appreciate being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming on and chatting it up. There he is, Mendel from the MeatStick. That's right. So be sure to check them out over at themeatstick.com. I know Dan saying as the battery power goes down, the signal gets unreliable. Well, I would imagine. If that's the power and you're losing the power, reliability might be at a premium, as they say. All right, let's go ahead and start to finish it up here, folks. Since 1983, all the way. Remember 1983? I was 9. Pits and Spits was established. That's right. Smokers and Grills made right down there in Houston, Texas, establishing itself as one of the premier brands in high-quality offset smokers and more recently pellet cookers. Pits and Spits setting itself apart by using heavy 7 and 10 gauge stainless in every cooker, fully welded construction that you can feel when you use the unit, and 304 stainless roll-top lids and front shelves on every single smoker. So why does it matter? Well, by using higher quality materials, Pits and Spits smokers reach and maintain temperatures, allowing you to worry more about the meat than the heat. By providing a fully welded smoker, you don't have to worry about grease or smoke leaking out of the barrel or about grills rattling apart as you move them through the backyard. By using 304 stainless, you're getting an heirloom quality product that you can pass down to your kids. Now, where some companies are focused on being the low-cost provider in the segment, Pits and Spits focuses on craftsmanship and quality materials. Are there cheaper ways to make these things? Yes, but they don't like tack welds. They don't like cheap stainless and electronics that you just can't trust. Having in-house manufacturing gives them complete control over the design and standards, not something you find with stuff brought in from overseas. Their steel suppliers supply material to be used in some of the harshest environments around, so you know they're going to perform in any and all conditions, like right here in Cleveland, or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, or North Dakota, or Wyoming. Their controllers, by the way, are made right here in the States, giving them unimpeded transparency into the programming. Pits and Spits has a dealer network across the country. If there isn't one close to you, feel free to give them a call at 844-650-6250. Ask for Coy, and he'll help you out. Tell him I sent you. Whether you're a backyard grill master or competition cooking team, Pits and Spits is a product for you. You can check them out and all of their products on the website, pitsandspits.com, all spelled out. Or you can see their pits in the wild across social media with their handle at Pits and Spits. Once again, all spelled out. Here's a fun fact from Navy Walrus that I'm going to flash right now. Did you know India has the highest rate of open defecation in the world? Why would I know that? I didn't. Fun fact here on the Barbecue Central Show. By the way, I have no way of corroborating that. So, Navy Walrus, provide your quality links and due diligence. Once again, that segment brought to you by Pits and Spits, and we're back to wrap the show right after this. Stick around, we'll be right back.
Whole packers, full racks, legs and thighs, injecting butts. If you've never heard this before, you might think you found the best XXX show ever. Let's get back to the most homoerotic host out there today, Greg Rempe.
And this portion brought to you by Vortic Watch. You see it right there on the split screen. A small batch custom watch manufacturing and vintage restoration company located in Boulder. They take it's Fort Collins, Colorado, by the way. They take antique American pocket watches, turn them into wristwatches like this. Their mission, preserve and enhance the legacy of manufacturing excellence in America. In order to do that, they combine traditional and cutting-edge technology to create unique quality, functional timepieces with exceptional value. Here's the cool part. Each Vortic watch, unique, one of a kind. Vortic founded on the motto that America wasn't assembled, it was built. And you can check them out at vorticwatches.com. They already had the watch for the week up, and guess what? If you weren't quick, it's sold. Like, quickly. I got that email, man, that thing was gonzo. $3,200 today. That was on the cheap entry-level side. Cheap. That was on the entry-level side. We don't like to say cheap in the world of sales. At least I don't. It's got a negative connotation. We want to build value here, folks. That's what we do in this game. We build value. All right, let's go ahead and get the hell out of here all the way back in the first hour. We had Stephen Reichlin on from barbecuebible.com. We looked back at what was hot in 2020, and we looked ahead to what he thinks will be hot in 2021. He's also got a new grilling vegetables book coming out in April or May, I believe he said. Then we talked with Ben West from Spark Grill. It's a charcoal-powered with a thermostatic control Got some background on him and how the cooker works and what they're looking to do with it. He's looking to go big like Peloton, but with a grill. That's aggressive. I like it. Also, in the second hour, we found Ed Reilly. We talked about wood pellets from B&B. So there's another manufacturer who is making their recipe with their products, their raw materials, of making their pellets from the B&B recipe. And then we also talked about the fact that he has 850 grills under lock and key, ranging somewhere in the neighborhood of a total value of $100,000+. Like, I can't imagine. You get to 30 grills, and my wife would be like, what the fuck are you doing? That's 30 grills out there. Well, I got bad news, honey. I'm going to go get 820 more.
What?
I said 820 more. What the hell you are? Good for you, Ed. We close it out with Mendel Lin from the MeatStick. He's in Taiwan in a COVID reprieve because they haven't had a positive COVID case in like 250 days or whatever, so they're doing something right over there. And they have manufacturing over there, so we learned about the MeatStick and the Mini, the regular one, and their Wi-Fi connectivity and their Bluetooth connectivity, starting at around $70 and going up from there. I think it's got to be Wi-Fi. Everything else is BS. Get me Wi-Fi, get me reliability with the Wi-Fi, and somebody's going to win big with that when it becomes easy and reliable to use, and maybe that's the one. We'll see. MeatStick.com is the website. Big show planned for you next week. It's the 4th Tuesday, so we have the embedded correspondents. Derek Riches will be in for the first time as well. We're going to start gearing up for American Idol 2021, or whatever I'm going to call it this year. We'll start making those inroads as well. Jam-packed show. Hit me up during the week at BBQ Central Show on all the social medias, or a email is fine too, greg@thebbqcentralshow.com. September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.